isn't the best way to end your day. So Jack in the Box is giving you a bonus with their new Bonus Jack Combo. Fries, a drink, and a burger with your choice of 1, 2, or 3 patties, starting at just $4.49. Get so much more.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The LA Sparks are playing like one of the best teams in the WNBA. They beat the Indiana Fever Tuesday night 100-91 for their 7th win in the last 8 games. Kelsey Plume had 25 points and 11 assists. Rickea Jackson also dropped 25 points. The Sparks are now just 2 games below 500 at 13-15. On July 3rd, they were 5-13 and showing no signs of being a playoff contender. The Sparks are at home Thursday night against the Connecticut Sun. The Dodgers beat St. Louis 12-6. Max Muncy and Teoscar Hernandez each had 4 RBIs. The Angels lost to Tampa Bay 7-3. Tampa Bay scored all 7 of their runs in the 4th inning. An oldie but goodie is coming back to the Chargers. Wide receiver Keenan Allen, who played his first 11 seasons with the Chargers, re-signed with the team for a 1-year deal. The 33-year-old Allen played last season with the Chicago Bears. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
For the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at KBLA1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So, go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Though you may not drive a great big Cadillac, against the white wall, TV antennas in the back, you may not have.
I'm Tavis Smiley. Glad to have you with us in this hour of our program. We are in hour 2, and in this hour, 2 conversations, as we promised. On the B side of this hour, a conversation with Michael Steele, former chair of the RNC and now co-host of the Weeknight on MSNBC. We'll get Michael's thoughts. I'm anxious to hear his thoughts on the myriad ways that Republicans these days are threatening voting rights as we know it. So we'll talk to Michael Steele on the B side of this hour. We commence this hour in conversation with U.S. Civil Rights Commissioner Mondaire Jones. I always like that name, Mondaire Jones, and get his reflections on the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. We've been discussing that in our first hour, given that this is a historic week. And I suspect we'll also talk about the fate of the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, which Mondaire Jones co-sponsored when he was in Congress. Mondaire Jones, good to have you on, sir. How are you today?
Tavis, it is so great to be with you. I'm doing well today, sir. How are you?
Man, if I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I'm doing well and thrilled to be in conversation with you for these few moments. Let me. I'm trying to figure out where I want to start here. I think I want to go back to when you were in Congress and you co-sponsored this John Lewis legislation. I've been on a tear lately, talking, of course, about 60 years since the Voting Rights Act, and we've had a variety of conversations about it, and delighted to be in dialogue with you about it right now. But I'm still sort of smarting from the Biden era because I think that Democrats wasted a lot of time piddling around with that filibuster issue. And I believe, transparently here, that there should have been a couple carve-outs and one of them should have been the George Floyd Policing Act, and the other carve-out for me should have been this John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which would have strengthened voting rights as we know it. So I'm still in my feelings about that, but that's just me. What say you?
Look, I'm in my feelings about that as well. And let me say that there are other things that, if we're going to go the route of carve-outs, we could have added to it. The legislation codifying the right to an abortion. I think fundamental rights should not be subject to some arcane, anti-majoritarian feature of the United States Senate, which really has its origins in Jim Crow. But I don't blame Joe Biden as much as I do, candidly, Barack Obama and others of that era who had larger majorities in the Senate and could have done more, I think, to get rid of that filibuster. I don't think we should have a filibuster in the Senate. I think the American people don't understand what it is. They see you got a majority of people of a particular party in that chamber, and they wonder why you can't get things done.
Yep.
And I believe that if you get rid of the filibuster, you can really start to show the American people the difference between the parties when one is in power and the other is out of power. And so, my criticism of the Biden administration is that Joe Biden did not come out sooner in support of getting rid of the filibuster, or at least having a carve out for voting rights.
Yeah.
I don't know that it would have ultimately made a difference. I'm skeptical that it would have, but I think it was a missed opportunity, at least. I mean, he only came out for it, I think, in December of 2021, after I had been yelling about it all year.
Yeah.
And the rest of that story, Tavis. In January, legislation that would have saved the Voting Rights Act was filibustered, like some scene out of the Civil Rights Movement. And sadly, there were even a couple of Democrats who wouldn't support getting rid of the filibuster to pass it.
Yeah. To your point, my Christology makes me believe in forgiveness and makes me practice forgiveness. But I'm having a hard time forgiving Manchin and Sinema for what they did, or frankly what they didn't do when they were there. But I'll leave that where it is. Since you went there, I want to follow you. I hear your critique of Barack Obama with regard to this particular issue. What could he and should he have done?
There was a brief period when we even had a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate, until, for example, Ted Kennedy of Massachusetts passed away, which created an opening.
Right.
But the thing I want your listeners to understand is, and just taking a step back, is there is this procedure that says for non-budgetary legislation, you have to have 60 votes in the Senate, and there's 100 people in the Senate. People know that a majority of 100 is really just 51. And so why do you make it harder to pass legislation? This filibuster was weaponized to oppose civil rights legislation.
That's right.
And now it's being weaponized again, generations later, to oppose civil rights legislation, whether it be the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, or the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, which I co-sponsored and co-authored, and any number of other pieces of very important, oftentimes life-saving legislation. And what can happen is that you can have a majority of senators say, we want to get rid of the filibuster. But because of Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, we didn't have 51 votes to do that. And so that's why we're in the situation where we couldn't pass that voting rights legislation. Tavis, you've been talking about it. I mean, the Voting Rights Act was gutted 2013 by the Supreme Court, which even then was very conservative. It's only become somehow even more conservative, 12 years later. But even then, you had a Supreme Court majority that opposed the civil rights of African Americans in this country. And the only way to restore the Voting Rights Act is to pass that legislation that you mentioned.
My read of this moment, Mondaire, and I want to get your take on it when we come forward here. My read of this particular and peculiar moment when it comes to the Voting Rights Act 60 years later is that the Supreme Court that you just referenced is setting the stage for more gutting of voting rights. We're going to talk to Michael Steele, as I said earlier, on the backside of this hour. We talked to Michael about the way Republicans are showing up, and I'm going to get his take on it. But my read of this moment is that the Supreme Court has set the stage with a number of different rulings, which we don't have time to go through all of them. But they're setting the stage for further gutting of the Voting Rights Act, and that's what Republicans want. And so long as that filibuster is there, and for that matter, so long as Republicans now control the House and the Senate, ain't nothing happening in that regard that we'd be happy about. But I want to talk about whether or not you think I'm right about the fact the Supreme Court is going to gut this the Voting Rights Act as we know it even more so. And I want to talk about whether or not in that regard the rule of law is just dead in this country. Does the rule of law even matter anymore? Mondaire Jones is our guest right now on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
You gotta dip your chicken strips. Hey, this is Kiani.
And this is Tabitha.
And a little thing we love about Chick-fil-A chicken strips
is all the different sauces we can dip them in. I like to line up all my favorite sauces so that in every bite, I have a different flavor. Then with the tenderness of the chicken, the juiciness of it, it's all there.
And for me, I like to mix my sauces so I get a little tang and I get a little sweetness all in one bite.
That's what makes it for me. Like, that's what does it for me.
That's what I'm saying.
It's the summer of Chick-fil-A chicken strips and sauces. Order now on the Chick-fil-A app. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, he does whatever it takes to keep the power on in his community. And he wants a partner like Grainger who does the same. Grainger offers the professional-grade products he needs, from voltage detectors to harnesses to hard hats, plus fast, dependable delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Hey, it's Matt, your leaf filter trusted pro. Gutters are an often neglected part of the home. They're also one of the most important. Clogged, overflowing gutters can cause serious problems like foundation damage or basement flooding, which can cost thousands of dollars to fix. Let's face it, cleaning gutters yourself is not only a hassle, it can be dangerous. But when you get Leaf Filter, you'll never have to worry about cleaning clogged gutters again. Get started today by visiting leaffilter.com/deal to schedule your free inspection. If you decide to move forward, we'll professionally clean, realign, and seal your gutters before installing our patented stainless steel micro mesh system. Leaf Filter keeps out everything but the water. And it's backed by a lifetime transferable no clogs warranty. So you're protected for good. We're in your neighborhood and ready to help. Visit Leaf Filter today for a free inspection and estimate, and you could save up to 30%. Visit leaffilter.com/deal. That's leaffilter.com/deal.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with Mondaire Jones, former member of Congress, U.S. Civil Rights Commissioner, talking about the Voting Rights Act 60 years later and a few other things that are connected to that, not at all tangentially. Mondaire, you said something a moment ago that just triggered me. 2013. When they gutted the Voting Rights Act as we know it, the Supreme Court, and to your point, it is far more conservative now, believe it or not, than it was then. I don't think they're done, Mondaire.
They're not done. And, I was triggered too having this conversation because I also think back to another bill that I wrote called the Judiciary Act. And that would have expanded the size of the Supreme Court, Tavis. And there are a lot of Democrats who thought I was out of my mind when I said that. But I called it democracy-saving legislation. Yeah, that too was a civil rights bill when you think about what the Supreme Court has been allowed to do in the absence of adding more seats to that court, which has been done 7 times before in our nation's history. The size of the court, rather, has changed 7 times before in our nation's history. And there were Democrats in Congress serving alongside me who thought that that was too extreme at the time. But look at what has happened since then. The Supreme Court has further eroded our democracy, giving this president carte blanche to do whatever he wants to do, to deprive millions of Americans of their constitutional and civil rights, to effectively be a king, which he makes no secret of wanting to be, and had folks in Congress on the Democratic side joined me, this too would have required an exception to the filibuster. In adding those seats, I think we would be in a much better situation now. Because the crazy thing about it is that even if Kamala Harris had won the presidency last fall, we would still be dealing with a 6-3 hyper-conservative Republican supermajority on this court that does not believe in democracy, and that would have been striking down duly enacted Democratic legislation, even under a Kamala Harris presidency.
So no one has written better about this, as you know, Mondaire, than Elie Mystal, the justice correspondent for the Nation magazine. I love a couple of different books that he's written about this particular subject matter. Again, nobody more erudite on this subject matter, to my mind at least, than Elie. But I raise that to ask whether or not any of the suggestions that he's raised, or the one that you tried to advance when you were in Congress, do you believe, what's your gut tell you about whether or not in the not too distant future, or in the future period, we will ever see a real change to the way the Supreme Court works? And I take your point, it's changed 7 times, but that's before the country was as divided as it is right about now.
Well, Tavis, one of the times that the court changed was during a period of great division following the Civil War. Andrew Johnson, I believe, was viewed to be very hostile to the Reconstruction era legislation that Congress wanted to pass to enfranchise freed slaves, and they didn't want to give him the opportunity to appoint people to the Supreme Court that would be hostile to that legislation. So Congress literally reduced the size of the Supreme Court to deprive him of an opportunity to appoint folks to fill a vacancy. And that's the kind of energy that I think Democrats ought to be bringing to the fight.
Yeah.
I'm a realist. I'm an optimist, but I'm also a realist. The 2016 presidential election made a huge difference when it came to the composition of the Supreme Court, as you know, and we are still paying the price. And this president already has had the opportunity to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices, and that was under his first presidency. I imagine that there will be a vacancy or 2. Maybe Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito will retire under Donald Trump's presidency, so that he can appoint much younger justices to replace them. Until we change this, unless we change the structure of the Supreme Court by adding seats to the Supreme Court under a Democratic president and a Democratic Congress, I think the Supreme Court is lost for generations. And that is why we have to take what I propose very seriously.
You know, you mentioned Clarence Thomas. Since you went there, let me just follow you, Mondaire. I mentioned earlier in this conversation how I'm still smarting about the Biden administration not, again, addressing this filibuster issue with the carve-outs that you and I have already discussed earlier in this conversation. But I'm also still smarting from Ruth Bader Ginsburg. You mentioned Obama earlier. Obama, to his credit, did invite Ruth Bader Ginsburg to the White House for dinner one night, trying to gently coax her into stepping down to give him another appointment. Of course, when he did have one, mentioned and nominated Merrick Garland, we know that didn't go anywhere. That's a whole other conversation for another time. But he did invite Ruth Bader Ginsburg to the White House and have dinner with her, and we are told that dinner didn't last very long. That she excused herself from that dinner. And was having none of it. And I'm still smarting about that, because for all that she did all that she worked for, because she wouldn't stand down. It's all being undone right about now. I raise that only because you mentioned Clarence Thomas. I think Clarence Thomas is just so mean that he ain't going nowhere. He's going to die in that seat, my dear. I could be wrong about it. And I take your point that if he stepped down, Donald Trump could appoint somebody younger. But I think Clarence Thomas just wants to thumb his nose at all of us as long as he can, and he's going to do it till he's dead.
Well, I don't know. I hate to try to put myself in the mind of someone so tortured in the way that you've alluded to.
Yeah.
But if there's one thing I know about Clarence Thomas is that he is extremely partisan.
Yeah.
Despite what he and some of his colleagues on the Republican side of that court would have you believe.
Mm-hmm.
And he's old enough that it cannot be lost on him that if he does not retire under Donald Trump's presidency, then he may be replaced, if we still have elections in this country moving forward, by a Democratic appointee.
No, it's not just that Mondaire Jones served in Congress, he's a U.S. Civil Rights Commissioner. He also once worked in the U.S. Department of Justice, and I'm just curious to get his take on it. Given that you are an alum of DOJ, what is your read of the way that DOJ under Pam Bondi is showing up these days, or showing out? Take your pick, showing up, showing out. Yeah, I don't know.
The weaponization of the Department of Justice has happened under Donald Trump. It did not happen under Joe Biden, contrary to what Republican commentators have said. The fact that you just know that if a prospective defendant is an ally of the president, that person will just never be prosecuted for the next 3.5 years,
mm-hmm.
is itself evidence of, assault on our democracy, undermining the rule of law. I mean, this is banana republic stuff that we look down on in other societies, but that has now come to define this new chapter in American history. It's horrifying as an alum of the Justice Department. I was a staffer there before law school, working on judicial nominations and criminal justice reform under an attorney general I actually believed in, Eric Holder. I think one of the best attorney generals that we've ever had in this country, and he would never have led that office with fear or favor. This is supposed to be an independent office, and I just hope that once we're able to move past this period in American history, which I hope we will be able to, that all of these people are held accountable.
Yeah.
In the judicial system for their crimes, for their corruption, and I can just only pray. I can only pray.
Yeah, there are a couple of thoughts that come to mind in this moment, and let me just get it out as quickly as I can so I don't forget about it. One, I hear your point. There'll be about accountability. I don't think that's ever going to happen, Mondaire. It's never going to happen for a couple of reasons. The primary reason is because, I go back to Joe Biden again. We saw Joe Biden preemptively pardon people. And if you think that was something, wait until Donald Trump leaves the White House. I know he thinks he ain't got to go. He thinks he can run again. But when he does get escorted out of the White House at the end of this term, if you think that the preemptive pardons that Joe Biden addressed was an issue, wait until Trump leaves. Everybody is going to get, I'm telling you right now, 3 years ahead of time, everybody that you want to be held accountable is going to be preemptively pardoned before he leaves the White House. And, of course, we already know the Supreme Court gave him, Trump, immunity. But that accountability ain't going to happen. They're all going to be preemptively pardoned, Mondaire.
I think that's a very astute observation. I would not be surprised. In fact, he did it the last time he was in office. Why wouldn't he do it again?
Yeah.
So that is one of the several reasons that make me think that there will not be accountability within the U.S. justice system for these people. I share that skepticism.
Yeah, the other thing that came to mind while you were talking, I just wanted to ask you point blank, again, having been in Congress, having worked for the Department of Justice, now U.S. Civil Rights Commissioner, is the rule of law dead in this country? Is it dead?
I think that it's not completely dead. Look, there's a lot of prosecution happening, certainly at the state level. At the federal level, you've still got a robust antitrust operation going there. I was pleased to see that as one of the few good things that have happened under this presidency. But when you look at the way that the Civil Rights Division has been decimated by this president, and by the way, separately from that, the Office of Civil Rights at the Department of Education, which is responsible for enforcing our anti-discrimination law on college and university campuses in this country, something I'm looking into as I'm leading an investigation into anti-Semitism on college campuses and universities as part of the Civil Rights Commission on a bipartisan basis. This administration so clearly does not care about the Constitution or civil rights laws. And that's a big part of the rule of law.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
The Civil Rights Division is the crown jewel of the Department of Justice.
Yeah. I guess the exit question. I got 2 minutes left here, and I've enjoyed this conversation immensely. We have to do it again sometime. I guess the exit question for me is whether or not, when all is said and done, the damage, or at least a significant amount of it, Mondaire, will be irreparable. I mean, I'm asking that because, we know that Trump can't stay there forever, but it is the case. I've lived long enough, and you've lived long enough to have a read of history, where sometimes the damage that is done over a particular period of time is so long lasting, so irreparable that you can't even wrap your brain around it.
I think even if there is a Democratic president who gets elected in 2028, it is difficult, if not implausible, to repair the damage that has been done to the norms in this country, the way that we even think about things, right?
Yes.
I think if you're growing up, if you're coming of age in this moment, or if you're of a particular level of information about politics and government, I think you already sort of think about the presidency as a more authoritarian office than what historically has been conceived of in this country after the Revolutionary War, where we fought against the king, right? And I worry candidly about the impulses of a future president from the Democratic Party. So are we going to see more corruption?
Oh yeah.
In that context?
No, the one thing you and I agree on, I think, and this ain't rocket science. Whenever an executive, the commander-in-chief, president of the United States, whenever that person is able to successfully pull more power inside the executive branch, you know that no future president, Republican or Democrat, is giving that power back, Mondaire. So however authoritarian the White House is going to be, the executive branch is going to be when Trump leaves, ain't nobody in the future, Republican or Democrat, giving none of that power back.
And they will have the blessing of the Supreme Court, which is just inching closer and closer to this so-called unitary executive theory.
That's right.
Which allows the president to overrule legislation that has been passed by Congress to set up the various agencies. It allows him to fire people at will without the protections that Congress has legislated. He's already gotten immunity in this sweeping decision to commit crimes as of approximately last summer, I believe it was. People don't give up power that they have.
That's
right.
I
mean, that's counter to human thinking and the human experience.
That's Frederick Douglass, right? Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and never will. And that's true for Democrats and Republicans. I digress for now. Glad that he's on the U.S. Civil Rights Commission. We need some sober thinking people in positions like the one he's in now, having served in Congress and having worked at the Department of Justice. He is Mondaire Jones. Mondaire Jones, good to have you on, my friend. All the best to you, sir. We'll do it again.
Likewise. I'm looking forward to being back, Tavis. Thanks again.
Thank you, sir. From Mondaire Jones to Michael Steele when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Helping to stretch your moral and political imagination. This is Tavis Smiley.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. California Democrats may back Governor Newsom's call for a special election to regain redistricting power.
That's what's at stake, and that's why we're putting a stake in the ground. We're not drawing lines to draw lines. We're holding the line on democracy.
The move responds to Trump urging Texas Republicans to redraw maps. Baltimore County Council rejected Khadijah Walker as Inspector General in a 5-2 vote, sparking controversy. Despite her 20 years of experience, concerns over her investigative background and bypassing incumbent Kelly Madigan led to the decision. And over a decade in development, Even Me, The Journey, a powerful documentary by Black doctor Megan T. Ebor, is now streaming on Prime Video. It follows older Black Americans living with HIV, spotlighting resilience, stigma, and the power of voice and representation. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Spending 2 hours staring at the back of someone's bumper isn't the best way to end your day. So Jack in the Box is giving you a bonus with their new Bonus Jack Combo. Fries, a drink, and a burger with your choice of 1, 2, or 3 patties, starting at just $4.49. Get so much more.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The LA Sparks are playing like one of the best teams in the WNBA. They beat the Indiana Fever Tuesday night 100-91 for their 7th win in the last 8 games. Kelsey Plum had 25 points and 11 assists. Rickea Jackson also dropped 25 points. The Sparks are now just 2 games below 500 at 13-15. On July 3rd, they were 5-13 and showing no signs of being a playoff contender. The Sparks are at home Thursday night against the Connecticut Sun. The Dodgers beat St. Louis 12-6. Max Muncy and Teoscar Hernandez each had 4 RBIs. The Angels lost to Tampa Bay 7-3. Tampa Bay scored all 7 of their runs in the 4th inning. An oldie but goodie is coming back to the Chargers. Wide receiver Keenan Allen, who played his first 11 seasons with the Chargers, re-signed with the team for a 1-year deal. The 33-year-old Allen played last season with the Chicago Bears. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
Tavis Smiley is now ranked number 16 nationally and the highest rated talk show hosted by an African American on the 2025 Talkers Heavy 100 list of the most important talk radio hosts in the nation. Last year, Tavis ranked number 33 and the year before, number 45. The Tavis Smiley Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
Yay, yay!
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you having trouble hearing? Hearing loss can devastate the quality of your life. Now, there's an affordable fix for you or your loved one. Rated the best hearing aids of 2025 by Forbes Health, Audion Hearing has the highest quality hearing aids at the lowest prices, starting at just $98 a pair.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aid.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed.
Join over 1 million happy customers by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
This is Joe Cordell of Cordell & Cordell. Cordell & Cordell is the largest family law firm in the country, with over 35 years of helping clients navigate divorce. That does give us certain advantages, for example, in experience and resources. But being big doesn't mean less personal or less local. Our attorneys live and work in your community, and as neighbors, they understand the challenges your families face. If you're a guy facing divorce, remember, Cordell & Cordell, a partner you can count on.
1455 Frazee, San Diego. CordellCordell.com.
Do Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms keep coming back? Tremfya, guselkumab, may help, with rapid remission achieved at 12 weeks and lasting clinical remission at 1 year. Some even saw visible improvement of their intestinal lining at 12 weeks and 1 year. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease and adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Healing is possible with Tremfya. Approximately 3 out of 10 patients were in endoscopic remission at 1 year, based on areas visualized on colonoscopy, which may not represent the deeper bowel layer or entire GI tract. Individual results may vary. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Michael Steele, my friend and brother, who's the former chair of the RNC, Republican National Committee, as you well know, co-host these days of the Weeknight on MSNBC. Always delighted to be in conversation with Michael Steele. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm good, brother, man. How are you doing? It's been a few moons, my friend.
It has been a minute. You know me, man. If I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I'm doing well, all things considered. But again, always delighted to be in conversation with you. There's a lot I want to cover. A lot I want to cover in these few minutes that we have. Let me just start with this. We've been talking, of course, for the better part of today's show about today, Wednesday, being the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. And how would you respond if I said to you, and I am about to say to you, that while today is the 60th birthday of the Voting Rights Act, this may be its last birthday. And I say that because we have seen this decades-long effort to chip away at the Voting Rights Act as we know it and expand this notion of a colorblind reading of the Constitution's Reconstruction Amendments, which is troubling in a variety of ways. But if I said to you, and I think I just did, that while we're celebrating the 60th birthday of the Voting Rights Act, this may be its last birthday, given the way Republicans are moving, you'd say what?
I'd say you're right. I say that it is shameful. As a Republican, it is embarrassing and shameful given our history and connection to both the Voting Rights Act of 65 and the Civil Rights Act of 64. And I think that for us as Americans, irrespective of your party, the idea that we think it's okay to delegitimize or minimize or otherwise make more difficult access to the ballot box, regardless. We should all be checked on that. When you think about the core of your question, stands on the Supreme Court decision of 2013, which was the Shelby County v. Holder case, which significantly undermined the importance and relevance and constitutional viability of the Voting Rights Act of 65 by giving states. Now, look, again, you know, I'm all about the 10th Amendment and the ability of states to govern themselves. That's how the country was founded. But the country in the course of its history also came to understand that the federal government's role in this space, guaranteeing and securing unfettered access to the ballot box, was necessary. Hence the Voting Rights Act, particularly with respect to what we as citizens, Black citizens specifically, were experiencing in the Jim Crow era. So now here we are 60 years later, some of those same states making it more difficult with the imprimatur of the Supreme Court, ironically enough. We should all be concerned, and your statement rings more true than we would otherwise realize.
Yeah, no naivete here, but I just want to ask it and get your read on it. What animates the way Republicans are so hostile to the Voting Rights Act? What is it about the Voting Rights Act to which they are so hostile. And I mean Republicans in Congress and
Sure.
those Republicans on the U.S. Supreme Court, even though we try to act like it's nonpartisan. But what are they so hostile to when it comes to the voting
Well,
rights?
it's animated, I think, by if I'm true and crass about it, a sort of BS understanding of originalism and and contextualism. And if you held up the originalist sword, then you would not strike down the Voting Rights Act because it is consistent with the relevant amendments that served as its predecessor, the 15th Amendment, for example, the 14th Amendment, because it's all locked in place by our rights to access this system, the judicial, the legal, and the electoral parts of our American system. But it is that, and it's also, to be quite honest, a fear of others, that somehow white folks, by virtue of acts like the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, which today is manifest in the forms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which, by the way, their white ancestors took advantage of when they came to this country in the turn of the last century, that this has now become a cudgel to beat back that level of progress. And so there's a reason why the country saw fit to put these pieces in place. There's a reason why the country recognizes that those pieces are still necessary, because immediately on the heels of Shelby, what happened? You have states like Georgia and others making it more difficult for Black and brown people to access the ballot box. So that second piece has become a really important reason, in my estimation. They're afraid that by opening up that ballot box access, that Black and brown people won't vote for the kinds of things that they want, which, when you factor in a white Christian nationalism, white nationalism writ large, you want to lock out as many folks as possible who would want to block having that become the standard here in the United States.
I'm going to circle back to Joe Biden in just a second. For those who've been listening to today's show, they've heard me talk about it already. I'm going to come back to that one more time with Michael Steele for a particular reason. But let me just ask you point blank how it is, and I'm willing to acknowledge this, even though I'm obviously bothered by it. How is it that Republicans all across the country, from the federal level down to local municipalities, how is it that Republicans have outmaneuvered and outstrategized Democrats on voting rights?
Well, that's a great question, my friend. And you and I have actually had this conversation over the last 10 or 15 years in various ways, because it goes to the heart of what you see as your end game. What's your end game? And so once you understand what your end game is, and for Republicans, the end game has always been the courts. The distraction was, this policy, abortion, for example, or that policy, the environment. The distraction was the political policy arguments and fights that were thrown up, while the strategic endpoint was the courts, because you knew all things would flow where, Tavis? To the courts. It all flows back to the courts. I don't care which court you're talking about. It's not just the federal courts, it's the local courts as well. And so to the extent that you look at that and you go, well, how do we get to control the outcome, meaning who gets on the courts? You then look at the various ways you need to do that. So take, for example, redistricting. It's ultimately going to end in the courts, but then you have to ask yourself, well, how do you even get there? Well, you get there by drawing the maps. And who draws the maps? The state legislatures. The members of Congress are in the seats they're in because the state legislature decided that seat exists, right? So if in the early 2000s, And certainly when I became chairman, I focused on that. Why? Because I grew up in a municipality. I knew where the power center were. I learned some of these strategies from people like John Ray and Joey Eldell, and certainly Marion Barry, who taught me about the grassroots aspect of that end game.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that over that time, Democrats were fighting a broader fight, a larger federal fight on abortion, on the ERA back in the late 70s and in the early 80s, et cetera.
Yeah.
The real strategy was the end game of controlling the courts. And then when you see that manifest, my friend, when Mitch McConnell basically, blocks and tackles even from a minority position.
Yeah.
Democrats in the Senate, it told me that the Democrats never really fully appreciated the end game.
Democrats have been outsmarted, out-strategized, outmaneuvered, outflanked, pick your term, when it comes to voting rights. And we commemorated 60 years later today, the Voting Rights Act. But as I said earlier, this might be its last birthday. If Republicans have their way, if the Supreme Court makes one more move, and based on this Louisiana case, which I don't have time to get into right now, my sense is they're going to gut this further. And the Voting Rights Act, as we have known it, will no longer exist. Here's my question for Michael Steele when we come forward. Every president, if they're being honest, has regrets when they leave the White House. I've talked to Bill Clinton about his. He regrets that he didn't move on Rwanda. He regrets, in some respects, that he signed that crime bill. I've even had conversations with him about the welfare bill that he signed. But every president has regrets, things that they could have done and didn't do when they were in the White House. I wonder if years down the road, Joe Biden is going to regret that he did not, as I suggested earlier, have a carve-out for voting rights and for the George Floyd policing act. We're talking about voting rights right now. I wonder if Joe Biden's going to regret somewhere down the road that he didn't handle this when he had the opportunity, again, for a carve-out with regard to the filibuster for voting rights. He didn't do it. He's an institutionalist. He believes he'd been in the Senate for, 100 years, so he didn't do it. And now we're in the Trump era, and this Supreme Court with Republicans in Congress, they're going to gut this thing completely. I wonder if Joe Biden will regret that down the road. Let's get inside his head to the extent we can with Michael Steele when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward.
Cashback is not available on gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin.
Susan, I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic is terrible.
It sure is. But on top of that, gas prices have been skyrocketing. I can't believe how expensive gas has gotten recently.
Prices at the pump are up, but I never pay full price for gas anymore. I just use the free Upside app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Upside app?
Yes, I get real cash back every time I buy gas.
And does that actually add up to anything?
I've made around $200.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code GOLD for an extra 25 cents per gallon cash back on your first fill-up. You can cash out anytime right to your bank account, to PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code GOLD for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code GOLD for 25 cents per gallon cash back on your first fill-up.
Want to extend that barbershop shave at home? Try Gillette Skin Guard, designed specifically for men who battle shaving irritation. With this irritation defense bar, 2 comfort blades, and a touch of aloe, it helps avoid shaving bumps and irritation, leaving me looking my best. I find it perfect for when I need a clean, fresh look, especially between barber visits. Tailored for black men, it's easy to use and offers the comfort my skin deserves. Stay confident between cuts with Gillette Skin Guard.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with Michael Steele, former chair of the RNC, first African-American, the only African-American to chair that party. Now co-host of the Weeknight on MSNBC, former lieutenant governor, first African-American to do that in Maryland. All kinds of firsts in the resume of one Michael Steele. Honored to have him in conversation for a few more moments here. So Democrats are going to do their best to revive the Voting Rights Act as we know it, as we commemorate the 60th birthday of the Voting Rights Act today. But obviously they face long odds. My question, Michael, is whether or not somewhere down the road Joe Biden is going to regret that they didn't address that filibuster issue and get this done when he could have.
I think so. And if he doesn't, he should. And again, from a strategy perspective, look, if nothing else comes out of this era that we need to learn is we have to think strategically when up against an opposition. And well, first off, understanding what that opposition is and how deep that opposition is in its anti or illiberal behavior. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I think for someone like a Joe Biden, given his stand in this space, having learned from some of the decisions that he was a part of that came back to bite him during his presidential run in 2020, and certainly the effort that it took to get the nomination in the first place, you would think that appreciating the George Floyd moment, if you will, mm-hmm. enshrining and affirming and enshrining in those moments the historic value of voting rights. I think that's something that's going to stand out for the president because the signs were there that this was a target. Yeah. Long before we got to the Biden administration.
We know he signed a lucrative book deal and is working on his book, I suspect. I'm fascinated to see if he writes about this when he gets to the part about his regrets. I wonder whether or not he's going to address this particular issue because by then it may be a thing of the past. Our remaining Voting Rights Act, that is. Our remaining moments of Michael Steele when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. BenefitsCheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
And the top-rated African-American talk show host in the nation, according to Talkers Magazine. You're tapped in with Tavis Smiley right now.
So, Michael Steele, are we having fun yet on the weeknight?
Oh man, we're having a blast. It is really good conversation every night with Simone Sanders Townsend and Alicia Menendez. We try to mix it up and just, look, it's tough to bring the news at the end of the day when people have been watching and listening to the news at the end of the, all day long. And we somehow figured out that formula in a way that I think it's engaging, informative, and so far so good, my friend.
Yep.
So far so good.
You've been at this for a while now, but this moment is again a very peculiar moment in American political history. What are you learning, or what have you learned about how we go about holding people accountable from media purges in this moment?
Well, I think a couple of things. One, we need to start by holding ourselves accountable. We've seemed to walked away from the civic responsibility that's been handed to us by the Constitution. This is a government that's not formed by institutions or a presidency. It is formed by the people. Period. It's that simple. It's not complicated. So accountability starts with each one of us and what we do with that vote, which, as we started this conversation, we should be reminded of how important it is. In fact, on the cloture vote on the 65 Voting Rights Act, Senator Ed Dirksen of Illinois, who was a champion and supporter that helped Lyndon Johnson get this passed, noted that Victor Hugo wrote, and he quoted him by saying, it's stronger than all the armies is an idea whose time has come.
That's right.
And he went on to exhort us to recognize that the time has come for equal opportunity in housing, government, and education, employment. And we can't lose sight of that as citizens. So whether we are in media or outside of media, whether we are in government or outside of government, we're still citizens. And we're still required to honor the charge that's been given to us by the founders, who, as you and I know, Tavis, did not include you and me when they wrote those words.
Oh, yeah.
But we now own those words. We own that piece of paper. And that's the legacy we pass on. So we can't let Trump and his crazy and the stupid around him overwhelm us to the point where we become numb to our responsibility as citizens to uphold the truth and the legacy that has been created through instruments like the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Act.
Yeah.
They're there for a reason.
I offer this as my exit question with 60 seconds to go. You are unique in that you are a Republican on what people regard as a left network, and yet you do it every single night. My exit question very quickly is, do you see a way out of this mess that we have ourselves in? Or put another way, do we just accept the fact that multiracial democracy just isn't possible?
No, I refuse to accept that. Nope, no way, no how. There's a reason why you have a vote, people. Vote the block out of your way. Vote the people who are blocking our progress to a multiracial, racial pluralist society out of office. That's the power we ultimately have at the end of the day. Even when they try to make that vote difficult to obtain and to prosecute, you've got to fight through that collectively together. Just not isolate. Well, that's only in Georgia where you can't, give people water in the line. Yeah. Well, you know what? We have a voice about that too. So I think we're all connected, and we need to recognize that.
He was a history maker in Maryland. He was a history maker at the RNC as the first African-American chairman, and he's on the Weeknight on MSNBC. Always delighted, again, to be in dialogue with Michael Steele. Michael, I'll see you tonight on TV, man. Thanks for your time, sir.
Thanks, bro. Take care of yourself.
Stay strong. More of Tavis, 'Smiley' 'Smiley' 'when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. California Democrats may back Governor Newsom's call for a special election to regain redistricting power.
That's what's